the Aussie Overlaw'd. He'll fight for your rights, and he's got his own channel shining bright. From the courtroom to the web, he's got it all. Sharing legal knowledge, answering the call. He breaks it down in a language we all understand. The Aussie Overlaw'd taking a stand. With his Aussie charm and his legal know-how, he's the hero we need, showing us how. He fights for justice, no case too tough. The Aussie Overlaw'd, he's more than enough. He's more than enough. In Melbourne town, where the suits all grind, there's a lawyer with a vision, one of a kind. He's the Aussie Overlaw'd. He'll fight for your rights, and he's got his own channel shining bright. From the courtroom to the web, he's got it all. Sharing legal knowledge, answering the call. He breaks it down in a language we all understand. The Aussie Overlaw'd taking a stand. With his Aussie charm and his legal know-how, he's the hero we need, showing us how.
And good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to today's episode of To Be Advised. To answer your question, Berries, Jeff got nuked from orbit. He's got a 7-day strike for something that he allegedly didn't do. And when I say allegedly, I'm just doing that to keep the YouTube overlords happy. He didn't do shit. Apparently, there was some sort of community note, like Q&A thing that was put onto the site. I think that that's a load of crap, because I don't think I've ever once seen him do that. Unless they're saying that something he put into one of his, like, question and answer, things on one of his streams. Volume? Okay, hang on. 62%. Damn, that's probably the lowest they've ever put me down. Yes, his poll, thank you. Not his poll, the poll that he put into the show. Anyway, he's gone for at least 7 days. He is justifiably pissy, so he's not going to be doing anything tonight. I'm trying to coax him into joining up to Rumble and walking him through getting monetized over there, just so that he can, get back to doing what he does best. But in the meantime, I figured that I should probably at least do something to fill the void, so that people don't have to be off alone with their own thoughts or dealing with some other more unsavory stuff that's on YouTube. Yes, that's... what do you call it? I'm a good Samaritan, which is completely bullshit. Yes, Effort Friday was supposed to be this weekend. So, like I said, he's legitimately, genuinely pissy. Now, so what I thought I'd do is something that'd take a few extra hours instead of just doing my normal hour and a half. Yes, hello, Angel. She's eager to say hello, people. So if you want to send chats or memberships, $50 and you can say hello to the doggo. She's quite eager to say hello today. She had a she said she had a good day, frankly. This is how you feel your evenings? Well, there you go. Happy to. As I said, no idea what the hell the chat thing that I use updated apparently, and now it stopped working again. So I'm going to save all the settings, and during this I will update it. Your chat should start showing up during the stream. But what we're going to be doing is I've decided to start doing the once a week retro trial, which I kept talking about. Now, after the Crazy Karen stream that I had a couple of days ago, I was planning on doing the wow, you were really that desperate to get on stream that you just had to sit there? Really? Okay. Have I thought about Lawyer X? Yes, but there's only so much that you can do from going over court transcripts and things like that. Yes, you're getting free dog cam. Congratulations. I tried to find the Crazy Karen one, the entitled Brat. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Court TV or Law and Crime have it. If anyone can point me in the right direction as to which television network may have streamed it in its entirety, I can only find bits and pieces. So, what I thought was that I'd pick between two, and I was tossing up between the Edgecombe trial or what we're going to be covering, which is the Jessica Chambers murder trial. Now, there is two murder trials in relation to this. This is going to be the first one, because this is the one... You know, for those of you that haven't seen it, I'm not going to ruin it. It kind of gives it away, the fact that there's a second one, though. So, it's a relatively short one, just to sort of test the waters, see how people respond to doing... to me doing a retro trial every now and then, but as bad as it sounds, it is some fairly laid-back and easy content for me, which... Given that in the next probably 2 weeks I'll be able to announce the major changes that are going on, you'll understand why I'll be taking sort of a more laid-back approach, shall we say, to streaming. It's all new to you? Well, there you go. Haven't heard about... I've heard about this case. Know what we're in for. There you go. Don't ruin it for everyone else, Burberries. Angel reached out to you, said she wanted her own channel, just seeing her sleeping while you work. She'd make you plenty of super chat money. You know, I would do that too. I actually thought about just getting a GoPro and attaching it to her collar, but like, I don't know. It seems like a waste of like $600-700. But I mean, hey, people love animals, so good deal. All right. Anyway, let's get stuck into this one. So this is the Jessica Chambers trial. I know only a little bit going into this, so most of this is going to be new and interesting information for me. So let me guess, they were at an impasse and didn't poll the jury. No, if I'm honest, this is probably a example of what should happen in certain circumstances. But again, I don't want to ruin it for everybody, even though I kind of already did. But let's get stuck into it. Where are we? Where's the trial stream? There we go. All right, now I should have audio. Everything should be set up and ready to go. Yeah, it has ridiculously low audio to start with, and then they sort of...
These instructions just to kind of govern the way that you will conduct yourself during the presentation of this case. And
while he's talking about the jury instructions, I'm going to try and fix the on-screen chat.
I will go on and read these to you. You have now been sworn as the jury to try this case. By your verdict, you will decide the disputed issues of fact. The court will decide the questions of law that arise during the trial, and before you retire to deliberate at the close of the trial, the court will instruct you on the law that you are to follow and apply in reaching your verdict. You should give careful attention to the testimony and the evidence as it is received and presented for your consideration, but you should not form or express any opinion about this case until you have retired to the jury room to consider your verdict, after having heard all of the evidence, the instructions of law from me, and the closing arguments of the attorneys. During the trial, you must not discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else, nor permit...
Okay, just as a TLDR, Jessica Chambers was a young lady who was found burnt to death next to her car, which was also on fire. It was in a small Mississippi town, and there was allegations about whether or not her boyfriend was involved. He did ultimately get shot and killed by somebody else, allegedly over a gambling game that they'd been doing the night before or whatever else. But the gentleman that was on trial... I'll try not to ruin the rest of it. Never mind.
anyone to discuss it in your presence. You must avoid reading newspaper headlines and articles relating to the trial. My court personnel have strict instructions. You'll not be allowed to read newspapers. You'll not be allowed to listen to or watch television or radio because we don't want you all to hear anything that might ultimately influence your decision in this case. We want your decision to come from what you hear from this witness stand right here and from other evidence that you receive. Throughout this trial, you'll receive what we call written evidence, documentary evidence. You'll receive evidence of from a projection of certain matters of evidence that will be presented as evidence in this case. And it will be received just like any other evidence. If something is allowed to be shown to you, I have approved it. Nothing will come to you that I have not approved.
No idea why that did that.
You will be allowed I have met with the attorneys in this case, you will be allowed to visit the scene of where this alleged incident occurred in the surrounding area. From time to time during the trial, I will be called on to make rulings on motions and objections. I talked to you a little bit about objections yesterday. And simply because one side objects, that doesn't mean that that attorney is trying to hide anything. It doesn't mean that that attorney is trying to keep something from you. It means that attorney is actually doing his job or her job. They are objecting to the admission of evidence, which they should do, and then I will rule on it. I will either sustain the objection or I will overrule it and permit you to see it or hear it. That's the way that will work. You should not infer from any such ruling.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to hear anything about this case that doesn't
I have any
give it away.
On the merits of this case favoring one side or the other. If I sustain an objection to a question asked of a witness and not permit it to be answered, you should not speculate what that answer might have been had I allowed it to be answered, nor draw any inference from that answer. During the trial, it may be necessary for me to confer with the lawyers outside the presence of the jury. It is impossible for me to predict when such a conference is going to occur and typically how long it will occur. You just should understand that we're going to conduct those conferences to consume as little of your time as possible. The attorneys for the parties will
hopefully as much as reasonable
to make opening statements in this case, and that's going to be our next order of business when I finish here.
Not okay if the judge decides that he wants to do it to the detriment of people.
They will explain to you
hint,
the issues in the case and summarize the facts that they intend to prove. The defense may wish to postpone their opening statement, which they're permitted to do under my rules, and make their opening statements at a later time. Or they may choose to go on with it now. That's their choice, but that is permitted under my rules. After all the evidence has been received, the attorneys will again have the opportunity to address you and to make their final arguments. The statements that the attorneys make and the arguments they make later are not to be considered by you as evidence, nor are they to be your instructions on the law. I will give you the instructions on the law. Nevertheless,
no, Trenton, I basically only use Twitch for gaming.
Are intended to help you properly understand the issues in this case, the evidence and the applicable law. So you should give them your close attention. The attorneys will not speak to you during the trial and will not thank you for your service at the conclusion. Their failure to do this does not indicate that they are being discourteous, but it does indicate that they are complying with the rules of court, which prohibits them from doing so. Complying with the rules of court. If you would like, and I'm going to permit you to take notes during the course of the trial, you're going to be furnished a notebook and pen. for you to make notes. Now listen carefully to my instructions about notes. First of all, you're not required to take notes. You don't have to. But if you want to, that's certainly going to be permitted. Each of you should make your own decision about whether or not you want to take notes. If you do take notes, don't become so involved in your note-taking that you become distracted to the proceedings that are going on on this witness stand. Notes are only a memory aid, and a juror's notes may be used by that juror only to aid and refresh that particular juror's memory. They're not to be shared with other jurors, and whether you take notes or not,
thanks very much, Paul Pearl. Appreciate it.
Express your own opinion as to the facts of this case. So an individual's juror's notes may be used by that juror only and may not be shown or shared with or to other jurors. You will note that our court reporter over here, Ms. Kathy Sanford, is, of course, was with you yesterday. She's our court reporter, and she's making a record of this trial. She has the responsibility of taking down everything that the lawyers say and everything that the witness say. She's, in my estimation, by far the most hardworking person seated in this courtroom. And from time to time, we're going to give her a break and let her refresh herself, and as well as
no
give
clue.
you a break.
I know next to nothing about this trial. That's why I'm going in blind.
To take one break in the morning, and to take another break at lunch, and to take another break in the afternoon. And for those reasons, I want you to understand exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. She's going to make a transcript of this trial, but when you begin your deliberations, those transcripts will not be available to you. In other words, what you will have to make your decision based on the evidence that's presented, the documents that are offered into evidence, and the testimony of the witnesses. You will have to do your best to recall. All right. The court will recognize the state of Mississippi for opening statement.
Whoa!
As Judge Tatum told you yesterday.
Dude, you better fix your bloody mic. Seriously. And apologies for the reaction there. That just caught me off guard, I'm not going to lie.
My name is John Champion, and I'm the district attorney for
There it goes.
Panola County, where we are now, DeSoto County, Tate County, Yallowbush County, and Tallahatchie County, just everything up and down, basically down I-55. This is the part of the trial that we call opening statements, which is where I intend over the next little while to lay out for you what this case is going to be about and what we expect the evidence to show in this case. I do want to reiterate something that Judge Chatham just told you. And I've been doing this almost 25 years, and I've had many jury trials. And invariably, at the conclusion of a trial, sometimes the jurors, while they're deliberating, will say, hey, can we see a copy of the testimony of so-and-so witness that Kathy is taking down right now?
And the answer is no.
Reiterate what the judge just said, and that will not be available to you. So the one thing that not only do we ask of you, and I'm sure the defense lawyers will ask of you, is to please pay attention. And please listen to what these witnesses are going to say. I anticipate that we're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of around 35 witnesses. We've been working really hard with the defense team over the last several months, and we were able to whittle the number of witnesses down from a much higher number to where we are now with some things that we have stipulated to which Judge Chatham at some point will read you what those stipulations are. Okay? I want to start by telling you that on December the 6th of 2014, Jessica Chambers,
thanks very much to Aussie Tank. Appreciate it.
Blonde-haired 19-year-old. She lived in a community that's about 6 to 7 miles due south of here called Cortland. But Cortland's like a lot of communities I'm sure you have in Pike County, that there aren't many people there, and basically everybody knows everybody. And that's the way that Cortland is. It was back in those days, and it still is today. A very small community. About 2 weeks prior to December the 6th of 2014, Jessica met a man that would eventually end her life. She met a man that would change the course of her family, that would change the course of the rest of the life of her family and her friends and everyone that knew her. And that man is Quentin Tellis. She met Quentin through a young lady you'll hear from here in a little while named Keisha Myers. And Jessica and Keisha and Quentin were all friends. They hung out together. Not a lot. And you'll hear Quentin tell some officers in some statements that he made that they would ride around, which is common. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, when you're living in a small community like Oxford back in those days, that's what you did. You rode around. Just not a lot to do. And I'm sure all of us at some point in our lives did the same thing in these small communities. And Jessica, on the morning of December the 6th, woke up. She called Quentin Tellis and said, hey,
Mississippi.
we'll get together. She picked Quentin up at a place, well, at his residence, which is, there's an area there. You'll see that when we go out on the field trip to show you the areas that you're going to hear about. You're going to hear about a lot of these areas from me here in the next few minutes. But on Highway 51, which runs right out of here and heading south, runs into Cortland. And at Cortland, there is a store called M&M's Grocery. M&M Grocery has video cameras. Across the street from M&M Grocery is the residence of Quentin Tellis' mother. In front of that residence is a shed. And it's near Highway 51. The residence that I'm talking about is just the driveway runs right off Highway 51. The cameras from the store actually show the driveway where Quentin lived and also an adjacent driveway, which will become important in this case later on. So Jessica picks up Quentin at his residence, and they begin to ride. And remember, this is Saturday morning. They go to Keisha Myers' house, which is not real far away, and they pick Keisha up, and they ride around, probably around 30 minutes. But one interesting thing that Quentin Tellis told the officers when he was interviewed was that they went by the scene where Jessica was found twice. It's a very remote scene. And I'll get to that in just a minute. As I want to take this as chronologically as best as I can for y'all. They ride around, and eventually Quentin gets out of the car back at his residence, and Jessica goes home. You will hear her mother testify, she'll be our first witness, that Jessica came home and took a nap, and that she woke up late in the afternoon, and she began to call and text Quentin. The one thing I want you to keep in mind is that she was also trying to get a hold of her friend Keisha, because Keisha will tell you that they had plans for that Saturday night. And December the 6th was a Saturday. But she couldn't get a hold of Keisha, and Keisha will tell you that she had one of those minutes phone where you have to pay for your minutes, and that she had run out of minutes, so her phone wasn't working. So Jessica was unable to get a hold of Keisha to find out what they were going to do and where they were going to go. So she contacts Quentin Tellis. And Quentin picks her up, or she picks Quentin up around 5:30 in the afternoon, and they begin to ride again. And they end up in Batesville, right here where we are now. As y'all came in yesterday, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a Taco Bell and some restaurants right as you got off the interstate.
Dude, seriously? That's how you're going to sell it to them?
Area. They end up going to Taco Bell and getting some food. They then drove back to Quentin's house. Now, Quentin will tell you in the statement that he gave the police that they parked in his driveway. But the cell phone data, which I'm going to get into here in a little while, shows that they were at an area just south of his house. And you're going to hear some terminology called RTTs, cell site location, cell location data. And we've got an expert that's going to explain all this to you, and I'll give you just a little bit about what that means right now. As we're sitting here, if you're not using your phone, it is sending a signal to the tower.
Hey,
if
Glennis.
it's on, kind of just telling it where it is. Okay? Now, there are towers all over the place here in Batesville, so when we try to get cell site or the location of the phone, it's a lot more accurate because there are more phone towers here in town. As you get into Cortland, depending on who your provider is, you might have only, and there was a tower in Pope, which is just south of Cortland, and there's a tower in Batesville that controlled AT&T. All right, Verizon actually has a tower in the Cortland area along with the towers in Pope and the towers in Batesville. Okay?
Is he trying to bore the jury during opening?
Experts in cell phone analysis to be able to determine where you are, maybe not precisely where you are, but within a general very close range based on the signals that your phone is sending to the tower. Now, every tower has 3 120 degree. Everybody knows a complete circle is 360 degrees. The towers are broken into 120 degree segments.
Okay.
So when these cell phone experts are able to look at the data they're getting from the subpoenas that we did in this case, they can tell you what tower and what sector that phone is actually located in. Okay? You're going to hear all of this about it, and I've gotten off the beaten path a little bit. But when I said a minute ago that the cell phone data was showing that they really weren't at Quentin's house, but a driveway that sits next to his house that leads up in the back to a trailer. Okay? We knew who lived in that trailer, and it was a friend of Quentin's sister, and his sister stayed there sometimes. So we know where all the parties are located, and all of this is also covered by the cameras that are located at M&M's. All right, everybody following me on this so far? So we know that around 6:30 that Jessica
It's a lot like
Quentin's
that.
phones are both hitting at a site just south of his house. We know that at 7:26, we're going to show you the video. Now, it's dark and you can't see the cars, but you can see the lights. That at 7:26, a set of headlights leave that driveway area and turn south on Highway 51. We also know that at the exact same time, Jessica's phone begins to move in that same direction. If you go less than a mile from his residence and his or the driveway next to his residence, if you go less than a mile,
If only his
Turn
opening
back to
statement
the west, you're on what they call Main
ability
Street in
matched his
Cortland.
ability to down an entire turkey in one sitting.
And you go due west, and Main Street turns into what they call Heron Road. And there's a site on Heron Road where there's a gate that leads back into some hunting camps. And we all know, and I'm sure they got them all over Pike County, you got hunting camps that folks like to go to when deer season starts and things like that. It's very similar here. There is a hill on the bank of that drive leading into that hunting camp in which Jessica's car was pulled up an embankment and jammed up basically between the fence and a tree. We know that at 8:04, 8:06, a phone call is made from a man named Glenn Williams, who you will hear from him today. He calls, or a gentleman with him calls the Pinota County Sheriff's Department and says, hey, there's a car on fire. So the Cortland Fire Department is about a mile and a half from this scene. And the scene I'm talking about where the car was on fire was jammed up in the trees I just told you about on the drive leading up into the hunting camp. You'll see this when we go out there. We know the phone call was made. Cortland is toned out. Their volunteer fire department is. And you're going to hear from all of the first responders that made that scene. You're going to hear from firefighters, not only from Cortland, but from Pope, which is just down the road. You're going to hear from the paramedics who made the scene and made the decision when they were treating Jessica that she needed to be flown out immediately. But what you're going to hear is that when Glenn Williams calls in the fire and the first responders get there only a couple of minutes later, because they were already there at the fire department after they'd just gotten off another call. When they get there, the first two will tell you, we looked up.
Holy crap, this guy managed to bore his hair to the point where it receded. Dude, why is your opening statement like this? Like, not serious, also serious because I'm lost. That's exactly the point. That's what I'm saying. This guy has legitimately... he's starting behind the 8 ball. He really is. Cue Ball is starting behind the 8 ball because he has paid next to no attention as to what he's trying to do in order to get it across to the jury. There's a reason why the defense's closing arguments are 8 minutes, because this chick, as far as I'm aware, knows exactly how to get across what she needs to. Isn't this where some cases are won? Yes, and very clearly, as you can see from here, this is where some cases are lost as well. An opening statement should be relatively short, to the punch. You should be walking the jury through the elements of the crime, what you're going to prove, how you're going to prove it, and setting up road signs. That's what you should be doing. Right now, this guy is getting lost in the weeds so far that's not funny.
And we saw a girl walking towards us wearing nothing but bra and panties. Or it looked like bra and panties. As she got closer to him, all she had on was panties. They got freaked out a minute because they had no clue what was going on. Because that call that came in was just about a car fire. It didn't involve a person. They backed the truck down the road a little bit. And a second truck arrives. And you'll hear from Cole Haley, who will tell you that the girl walked towards them and they could tell immediately that she had been severely burned. They put her down on the ground. They begin to cover her up. And other first responders are beginning to arrive. This will be the point in the
That's the
trial
other thing.
where
I would have expected the
probably start
defense to object
thinking
by
to
this
yourself
point.
Internally, why are we here? Because why are we here? Because they asked Jessica, who did this to you? Because it was obvious this wasn't a wreck. Okay? And the things would tell you, man, she was wearing her bra and panties. Now, who's going to have a wreck wearing your bra and panties? You know, I guess it could happen, but it's December the 6th. And the first responders begin asking her, who did this to you? And you're
I actually feel like that was inappropriate as well.
A variety of responses, okay? But the common theme was it sounded like she said Eric or Derek. Okay?
I'm starting to think he just likes saying the word.
His name is Quentin.
Hey, Bush.
But the one thing that I want you to
Excuse me.
please do not make a judgment at this point until you've heard every bit of this evidence, because it will change your mind. I can promise you that. It will change your mind when you hear everything. But the first responders think they hear her say Eric or Derek. I want you to look closely at the photographs.
You can, Jill. Generally, it's frowned upon. More likely than not, you're going to see a prosecutor will actually generally object to against something that the defense says. It's infinitely less likely. But yes, if he were crossing the line, then absolutely they could object to it. And at this point, as annoying as it is, he hasn't crossed any actual lines. But I'd be sitting there thinking, you know what? Maybe let's just take a step back. Let's move it along. Maybe let's, you know, if I was a defense counsel right now, I'm giving the judge a look, shall we say?
Of Jessica, and they're not pretty, folks. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Of her that were taken of her at the scene. She was burned over 93% of her body. Horrific burns, horrific pain. I would venture to guess that if all of us sitting here were to know we're going to die, that the very last way that we will.
That's true. But I mean, you can also object to the fact that he's testifying, which he's doing.
But Jessica was set on fire. So her condition at the scene is not like me talking to you right now. Her condition at the scene was her mouth was severely burned. You can see that in the photographs. We're going to unfortunately have to show you a photograph.
You're very welcome, Joe. I'm more than happy to.
Taken at the autopsy.
Also, I have no idea if the text-to-speech is coming through. I kind of don't want to use it during a trial stream. But thank you very much. I'm more than happy to. Also, that puts us...
So you will hear
10 more
all of the first
towards dog camp
responders that came there, and you will hear from the two paramedics that will tell you that we knew right away that she was extremely critical, and we had to get her out of there as fast as we could, so they called for the helicopter. The helicopter arrives, and they fly her to the regional medical center in Memphis, where they have one of the best burn units in the country. And she was flown to the regional burn center in Memphis, which is about 50 miles north of here. You will hear from a young lady named
Don't know. All
Mary
I heard
Beth
was the jury
Hall,
instructions and what he's
who's a
saying
nurse
so far.
practitioner that
I would
works
presume
in the
so.
burn unit, who was there with the treating physician when Jessica was brought in, and they knew immediately there was absolutely nothing they could do for her. There was no way that she was going to survive the burns that she suffered. They actually wrapped her up in an effort to ease as best they could the family's pain that was going to exist when they saw her.
Oh.
Mary Beth was in constant contact with the head of the burn unit, a Dr. William Hickerson, who you will hear from as well, that will describe for you the effect that these burns had on her and why there was no way that she was going to survive the burns, and she didn't. She arrived there at roughly 11 o'clock, and she passed away roughly 2:30 on Sunday morning, December the 7th of 2014. Obviously, an investigation began, and you'll hear from Edward Dixon. You're actually going to hear from two deputies who were there on the scene with Jessica, And then you're going to hear from Edward Dixon, who is an investigator with the Sheriff's Department, who will testify that while they were at the scene, they found a piece of a bra, and it was a very small piece of a bra. That was collected as evidence, and subsequently it was sent to the ATF lab in Atlanta, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm lab in Atlanta, where you'll hear from a guy named Matthew Simon, who will tell you that the substance on the bra was gasoline. You're going to hear also from a fellow named Jerry King. Now, Jerry King lived down the hill, and we'll stop there.
I don't think you had to talk about the cell towers at all to begin with.
Show you where, but it's roughly an eighth of a mile from the scene where Jessica was burned and where she was located. They found her keys to the vehicle laying off the side of the road. Jerry King found them. He calls the Sheriff's Department, and Tyler Mills from the Sheriff's Department responds and collects the keys. Those keys were submitted to a place in Jackson called Scales Biological Laboratory, where they were tested for DNA. There was a mixture of DNA found on the keys, 1/8 or even further a mile from where Jessica was burned, and Quentin Tellis' DNA is on those keys. His DNA is on the keys. The investigation begins. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is called in to assist the Pinalto County Sheriff's Department. ATF is called in from Oxford. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Oxford renders, they have technological expert. You'll hear from him. You'll hear from him for a long time in this trial. But all of their expertise was given to us in this case. On December the 10th, Quentin Tellis was brought in for questioning. He told the Sheriff's Department investigator, Barry Thompson, who you will hear from, and he also told an NBI investigator named Tim Douglas, who you will hear from, that he had been with Jessica that morning and he had not seen her the rest of the day. That he didn't talk to her the rest of the day. This was 3 or 4 days, basically 3 days after Jessica died. He also said that he was in in Batesville, where we are right now, right down the road down here, buying what we call a green dot card. I didn't know what a green dot card was before this case started, but it's like Western Union. You can send money. Basically, you pay for it, and somebody on the other end can upload money onto a credit card, similar to a Visa, and transfer money. He told us that he was in Batesville buying a green dot card, and he was sending money to his girlfriend in Monroe, Louisiana. And the FBI came in the case the second week, and we were doing follow-up interviews, and they decided they wanted to go and talk to Quentin again. So they go to his residence, and they begin to talk to him. But 2 very, very interesting things, and I want y'all to please remember this. 2 very interesting things come out of the conversation between Quentin and the FBI. Number one is he admitted that at some time prior to her death that he had had sex with Jessica. The FBI asked him where, and he's pointed out the area right next to his residence, where I told you earlier, remember, that the phones were hitting right before Jessica died. He told the FBI that's where they had sex. He was asked about the position, because it was a small car, how did they do it? And he said, well, we did it in the passenger seat with the seat laid back. Guess how the seat was laid back when investigators found the car at the scene? The seat was laid back. They then started talking about his modes of transportation.
So they got a rootin' tootin' in the
And
car.
he told the FBI at the scene
Oh, what was that?
that he kept a dirt bike in the shed in front of his house. And you will see that shed. But more interesting, and I told you there were two things to please remember. One was he pointed out the scene where they had sex. Second of all, he walked the FBI in and said, hey, I got a 5-gallon can of gas right here. What did I tell you was the substance that was used to pour on Jessica? It was gasoline. He also told the FBI the same story about going and getting the green dot card. So the FBI actually goes to Batesville. They locate him on the video, buying the green dot card, photograph it. You'll see that. So at this point, Quentin goes off of the radar. And this is in January, December and January of 2014 into 2015. This case goes on, and we had numerous leads during the course of this investigation that we really felt we had solved the case. We went to Iowa. We went to Aberdeen and Amory. We went to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Multiple places that we went thinking that we had really, really, really solid leads. Every single one of them fizzle out. In September, October of 2015, the analyst from the U.S. Attorney's Office he's been working with us the whole time. We had Scott here from ATF working with us the whole time. We had Tim Douglas from MBI working with us the whole time. Barry Thompson from the Sheriff's Department working with us the whole time. But this case turned when Paul began looking at the location data on Jessica's phone. And he realized that the location data wasn't quite accurate that we were getting from the cell phone company. Because he's got software where he can map these pings that the phone sends to, or we call them RTTs, that the phone sends to the tower. So Paul, being the incredibly smart person that he is, and I think you'll find that once you listen to him, because not only does he work for the U.S. Attorney's Office as an intelligence analyst, but he's also a colonel in the United States Air Force. And he deals with intelligence in the United States Air Force. He began looking at Jessica's location data and realized that it wasn't quite accurate. So he went and found places that we knew Jessica was, either by video or by witnesses. And that's when he learned that just how far, and it was a consistent off. And he actually just moved her RTTs to where we knew she was at a particular time, and guess whose RTTs she was right on top of? Quentin Tellis. Now, Portland's a small area. Could it have been I don't know what the word I'm looking for, accident, or could it be just the fact they were in the same area at the same time? So a decision was made to reapproach Quentin Tellis with the information that we had gathered from the cell phone data. We learned that he was living in Monroe, Louisiana. He had moved down there and had actually gotten married to the girl he sent the green dot card to. He had moved to Monroe. So investigators take a trip to Monroe, and Quentin agrees to talk with us. And he basically sticks with the same story, was I didn't see her after around noon. Well, we confronted him because by this time, not only did we have all of his cell phone data, which included his text messages, his phone calls, but we also had all of Jessica's text messages and all her phone calls. And it was very obvious to us they were communicating throughout the afternoon. And it was very obvious to us that she had intended to meet him that night, which had never been told to us when he was interviewed 3 days after Jessica died. And then another 10 days or 8 days later, when the FBI interviewed him, he never mentioned that. We found that curious. Hopefully you will as well. So during the course of the interview, he stuck to his story. And then Paul comes in and begins talking with Quentin and showing him the cell phone data. And all of a sudden, he realizes, wait a minute, they got me. I got to come up with a story now. So he changes completely his story in a very short amount of time to where he hadn't seen Jessica since they rode around earlier that day to, oh yeah. Because their phones were dead on top of each other at Taco Bell here in Batesville. He says, oh yeah, she wanted some weed, and I agreed to meet her up there. I took Big Mike's truck. I remember now, I left Cortland and I drove to Batesville, and I met her at Goody's, which is where she worked, and Goody's is right behind Taco Bell. When y'all are going back tonight to your hotel, if you're going out on Highway 6, before you take a left going toward your hotel, Taco Bell, Goody's, and all that's on your left. Okay, if y'all want to look at it when you go by. But he says, yeah, I remember now, I met her in Batesville. Sold her some weed, and I left. Didn't see her again. He said, I went down to an area called the Sandbox, which is a hangout area near Cortland. And he said, I hung around with Grip, who was Alexander Carr. Okay, and then another guy named Terrence Shegog. He said, I was with them, they saw me. I was with Big...
I was hoping to save this for at least, like, the third or fourth hour, if we get that far. I mean, we're about to head into the second hour, but this guy is so bad that it's putting me to sleep, and I'm going to have to break out my old nemesis. Like, bloody hell. He's still got another 20 minutes of this shit. Have I seen Gundam Breaking 4 yet? Maybe good for you extreme players, you like Gundam. I haven't seen the game, but certainly something to think about. In the meantime, I'm going to be building this one. So. No, he's not getting to the point in the slightest.
Mike all day. I borrowed Big Mike's truck to go to Batesville to sell her the weed. Okay? So, fine. Hey, now we're getting somewhere. So we ended the interviews. This was in November of 2015, excuse me. I'm getting the years wrong.
Dude.
And we come back to Batesville, and investigators, who do you think the first three people the investigators brought in? Big Mike, Terrence Shegog, and Alexander Carr. The three people who were his alibi witnesses that he gave us during the interviews with him in Monroe, Louisiana. And Big Mike said, hell no, I wasn't with him. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. There is a player for the New York Giants named John Jerry who grew up here in Batesville. He and Mike are big buddies. They were playing the Tennessee Titans in Nashville.
Looks like it, Burberry's.
And he had
Looks
got
like that was the question.
Big Mike tickets to the game and a hotel room. And Big Mike had left early in the afternoon that Jessica was burned to go to Nashville. And he went...
I'm not sure if it was the first or the second trial, but they were definitely sequestered in Batesville.
In the car that Quentin described to us. He wasn't anywhere near here. He was in Nashville. So, boy, our red lights are really going off now. We bring in Alexander Carr and Terrence Shegog, and we interview them. They said, man, I know who he is. I don't hang out with him. I was not with him at the sandbox on the night that Jessica died. I wasn't there. He wasn't there. I wasn't with him. So now he's given us 3 alibi witnesses who have come in and said to us, this man is lying. We were not with him. So at this point, we really realized that we were on to something much more than what we were earlier. Not only was the cell phone data matching up as the two of them being together, and we had a mystery hour from 6:30 to roughly 7:30 when Jessica's phone was completely silent, except for one call that she made to her mother around 6:45. The interesting thing that Paul will tell you is that that exact same time frame, his phone was completely silent. And believe me, folks, they wore their phones out. Both phones, remarkably, at the same time, go silent. Well, to us, that indicated that she's with someone, he's with someone. And where do the RTTs and the phone data put each other, but right on top of each other at that exact same time period? So logic will tell you that the two of them are together right next to his residence from 6:30 to 7:30. When her phone begins to move west, we know for a fact that her phone was on the scene where she died at 7:30. 4 minutes later, when you will see the headlights come out of the driveway and head south. Now, a little tidbit of information I hadn't told you about yet is we go back in January of 2016 to Monroe, Louisiana. And he is confronted a second time with the information that Paul gives him, that we have interviewed Big Mike, Terrence Shegog, and Alexander Carr, and all three of them said you weren't with him. Big Mike was in Nashville. And he says on the tape, oh yeah, Big Mike went to Nashville. Okay? Now we get to round 3 of his stories. He finally admits that Jessica came and picked him up around 5:30. He never mentioned that in the interview 3 days after it happened. He never mentioned in the interview 10 days or 8 days later when the FBI interviewed him. He never mentioned that in his first interview that we conducted with him in Monroe the first day. He never mentioned that the second day. Finally, when we go back at the end of January, he says, oh yeah, I was with her. He says, she picked me up and we drove to Taco Bell. Boom. Confirming the cell phone data that we had, that they were on top of each other in Batesville. He said,
Crazy.
yeah, we then drove back to my house and were in my yard together. Boom. Confirms all the cell phone data that we had showing the two of them together. But this time there is no Big Mike. This time there is no Terrence Shegog. And this time there is no Alexander Carr. It's the two of them in her car. He claims in his yard, but the cell phone data shows it's right next to his yard, that the two of them are together. Now, he claims that Jessica left around 7 o'clock. We've got the video from the store that you will see that plenty of times that shows between 6:30 and 7:10, no one leaves that house or that area except for one person. And that's his Uncle Sammy. And Uncle Sammy drives directly across the street to the store.
Thank you very much for that one,
You
Jill.
see him on video coming in the store. The next lights that he leave either from his driveway or the one next to it are at 7:26 when her when her phone data begins to shift to the west. No one else leaves. We know his mama leaves at 7:38 and comes across the street to the store.
I can confirm that when
That's
completely
on video.
blackout drunk, Boosh does sound like a complete redneck.
Okay? The next interesting thing that you will see is that at 7:50, a car pulls in, or a vehicle pulls into the shed in front of his house at 7:50. And it's there for 96 seconds. Remember when he interviewed the FBI? What did the FBI, or what they're going to tell you is that he showed them in that shed where this car parks that he had a can of gasoline in that shed. This was almost 2 years to the date after the FBI interviewed him that finally we see on the video a vehicle pull up to this shed.
No, look, Boosh, I will, just not for my birthday.
We knew he wasn't in a car. So we began to wonder how in the world, or who that is. Well, he admits that around this time, you'll hear him say it in the interviews, he admits that around this time, he goes across the street to his sister's house. She lives a little bit down the road. His sister lives between where he lives and where Jessica was found. His sister lives between where the keys were found and where he lives. He admits going in there and borrowing her car. Now he says this is only the second time
Jill.
I've ever been in her
The dogger
or
count is
used
up
her
there now.
car.
That's how many.
The
That's
first
how
time
far
was
we
when I
are
took
away.
it to wash it for her, sometime before. But he admits at about this time, for some reason, and he says the reason is to go to Batesville to buy the green dot. But he's not on camera until almost 8:30 buying the green dot. So we see a vehicle pull into the area where 2 years earlier he had told the FBI that I keep gas in there.
There you go, Alan. I'll turn them
That
off.
vehicle is there for 96 seconds. It backs out on Highway 51 and goes back south toward Cortland, towards the scene. We have a photograph that a few minutes after 8 o'clock from the store video of a white car, and his sister had a white, I think it's Yukon, going north. We see a white vehicle going north on the camera, and the investigators asked him during the course of the interrogation, could that be you? I think it was at 8:04. Could that be you going north on Highway 51? Because at 8:08, his phones transfer from the Pope Tower to the Batesville Tower, which means he is definitely coming north. And he tells the police, yeah.
What do you
that's
care which direction he's
probably
coming
me
in?
that car going to Batesville to buy the green dot. The car is going by, and you'll see it, at a high rate of speed, coming from the area where the crime scene would be located. And you got to understand, the crime scene is a good ways away. You go down 51, you take a right on Main Street, you go out. It's about a mile, or a little over a mile,
I appreciate that, Aussie Tank.
from where Jessica was found to his house. It's right at a mile from where Jessica's was found to his sister's house. A very short distance. And our theory of the case is that he left Jessica at the scene. And the one thing that Judge Chatham read to y'all yesterday, y'all remember when he read y'all the charges? When y'all were sitting in the room, he read you the indictment? Okay? The indictment says that with or without any design to affect the death of. Okay, and what that basically means under Mississippi law is that in a capital murder case, the state is not required to prove that he intended to kill. Only that a death occurred during the commission of another crime. All right, everybody understand what I'm saying? We don't have to prove, and the greatest example is, say somebody's robbing a store, and a store clerk, or somebody fires a shot up in the air and hits somebody and kills them. There was no intent to kill that person, but someone died during the commission of that robbery. Okay, that is capital murder. Our allegation in indictment, and what I expect Judge Chatham at the conclusion of this trial to instruct y'all on, is that the death occurred during the commission of third-degree arson, which is the automobile. You will see numerous text messages between Jessica and Quentin where he is constantly asking her for sex. And she is constantly turning him down. You will see this in the text messages. I don't know what happened inside that car at the side of his house. But some interesting things evolved from his interview with the FBI and the interview of where the seat, or the physical findings of where the seat was. He told the FBI that they had had sex in the passenger.
Hang on. Thank you so much to Aussie Tank for dropping 5 memberships. Congratulations to Liberty Prime, Jim Gerard, Black Horse Cavalry, Paul Farrell, and it's Trenton. And yes, that will put us over the doggo limit. And one for good night. There we go. I wasn't sure whether or not to put it up in the top corner or down the bottom next to me. We'll see what happens. I kind of feel like I need to make it a little bit bigger, though. I mean, I can always just put it over the guy's face, but, you know, that doesn't seem appropriate.
Your seat with the seat laid back. That's the exact position.
Hopefully the string doesn't appear too cluttered.
That night. The state is not required to prove motive. Y'all remember, Jay, and y'all all assured us that you would not require us to prove a motive. Even though everybody wants one, we're not required to prove you one. And you're allowed to develop your own motive. When you think about what you hear in this case, you are allowed to develop your own motive. But I think what you're going to find,
we're allowed to speculate on this case,
uncontradicted, is that there were these series of text messages between the two, even on the day that she died or the day that she was burned. There were text messages where he's asking her for sex. And go back to what I told you, ladies and gentlemen, at the very beginning. How was she found at the scene? In a panties, and we found pieces of the bra because the bra had been burned off of her. So all she basically had on.
He's getting too much enjoyment out of saying those words.
December the 6th,
I'm just saying it.
It's 40-something degrees. She's not going to be walking the roads of Pinova County wearing a bra in panties or just panties.
Stop saying the P word. It's not that difficult to say underpants.
And the people at the Med will tell you as soon as they try to get the panties off, they just disintegrated because they were burned into her so bad. The panties just basically disintegrated. But the series of text messages where he is asking her for sex, and she's nice about it. You know, she's not abrupt about it. You know, she is putting him off. But what we do know for 100% certain is that he told the FBI where they had sex, next to his house. We know where he told everybody, or told them, the position of the seat. We know for a fact how the seat was found, you're going to see plenty of photographs of it. And we're going to know what she was wearing when they found her. I don't know what happened inside the car.
Clearly.
And when I do my closing argument, I'll tell you what I think happened. Okay? I think he suffocated her and thought he had killed her. And that he had to get her away
So much for waiting until the
from his house.
closing statements.
He wanted sex. You'll see the text messages where he wanted her.
Oh, Jill.
And that they end up, he drives to the scene that he'd already been by twice that day. That morning with Jessica and with Keisha. That he parks the car there, takes the keys with him, and runs. And as he's running towards his sister's house, he either drops the keys or throws them. Because what's the first thing, or one of the very first things I told you about those keys? His DNA is on those keys. That he runs to his sister's house, and we'll show you a couple of routes. We don't know the route, but there is a route that leads, as you're coming into Cortland, you cross some railroad tracks, and there's a road that runs back north. And there's some few residences down there, and if you run in the yards of those residences and come straight up a hill, you run right in the back of his sister's trailer. Okay? That he is in a panic mode. That he borrows his sister's car.
Run, Jim.
That's the vehicle we see pulling into his house at the shed where the gas is located. That we know he told the FBI. That he drives back to the scene, pours gasoline into the car, lights it up, and drives to Batesville to buy this green dot so that he would have an alibi of where he was. Another interesting thing you'll see is that his phone becomes active around 7:42, where he calls Jessica. Now remember,
6
she had
minutes.
just left at 7:26
We can do it, people. There's 6 minutes left.
from his residence, where he admitted they'd been together. At 7:42, he calls Jessica, and then he sends her a text message saying, "Hey, honey, I can't be with you tonight. My girl's coming up." Something to that effect. Okay? Then, after that, he calls his girl in Louisiana. And then around 7:50, his phone goes dead again. No activity whatsoever. And his call to his girlfriend was made after the call and the text to Jessica. How in the world did he know his girl was coming up if he hadn't talked to her yet?
Maybe they'd spoken the day
First person he tried to
before,
get hold
or
of was
maybe he was
Jessica.
just going to tell her to show up.
Okay.
You know, some ladies are
And he
submissive.
sends her a text saying, "Hey, my girl's coming up. I can't be with you tonight." Then he calls his girl. How in the world would he have
That's
known
not
his
particularly
girl was
strong to me,
coming
mate.
up when he sent the text message to Jessica if he hadn't even talked to her yet? Not since about 4 o'clock. And he was with Jessica some 16 minutes earlier. So that was an alibi text. That was a text to throw the police off saying, "Hey, well, why am I texting her if I'm killing her?" That's what that is. And when Paul testifies, we're going to have a PowerPoint for you that's going to tie all of this together. You're going to see all of these text messages. You're going to see all of the communications between the two of them. And remember, they'd only known each other 2 weeks. That's it. I know I've gone on and on and on here.
Yes,
but
you
this
are.
is an extremely important case. Because anytime that somebody dies, and I noticed yesterday, and I've been doing this a long time, fixing to start my 25th year.
God damn.
I sat in front of a lot of juries in my day, and I saw the look I expected to see when y'all's names were called out yesterday. Saw a lot of different facial expressions. But the fact that each and every one of you are willing to serve
Thanks, Tinge. I like my liver.
is such a satisfying and appreciative.
The fact that you all have to sit here and listen to me use the word panties just tickles my balls.
Because we're asking you to give up the next week or so of your life so that we can make sure that the right thing is done, so that we can make sure that justice is served. Because he deserves a fair trial. And we have worked wonderfully with the law, with Darla and Alton on this case as far as making sure we had everything. We're not hiding anything wrong. We gave them everything we had. And they on the other side have been extremely cooperative with us. And we're all after the same thing. We're all after and hoping that justice will be served in some form in this case. And what that justice is will be up to you. The state submits right now.
I've been practicing, Ella. Sometimes it works, sometimes it
We're
doesn't.
going to be able to show you every single thing that I have stood up here for probably close to the last hour talking about.
Close to?
That you're going to see all
56
this
minutes.
is not stuff that I made up. And that the investigators in this case worked to make sure that things were done the right way. So that when we come in here to you, we can present a case that you can reach a verdict on. And I submit to you that you're going to sit there and wonder when you hear these first responders, and I can't explain, but if you'll sit there and say, tell us, without trying to move your tongue, it sounds a lot like Eric or Derek. Was that what she was trying to say? Was she in such a state of shock? I can't answer that question, and that's going to be a question that I can't answer for you. All I can tell you is what these first responders thought they heard. But if you'll remember a little while ago, I said, I think we'll be able to change your minds when we start showing you the number of lies that he told and how he had to when he's confronted with the physical evidence, the cell phone data. There was no way out for him, none whatsoever. What are the chances that in less than 4 minutes she leaves his house and gets with somebody else? It's just not feasible. Just not feasible when you look at everything. Once we conclude this trial, I'll speak to you again, and we'll go over what you're going to hear over the next several days. And I firmly believe that once this case is concluded and y'all enter that room to begin deliberating, you will say, well, everything that Mr. Champion told us in the opening statement, he has shown you. And I believe that Quentin Tellis is guilty of capital murder beyond a reasonable doubt. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the defense wish to make opening statement now?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right.
Okay, chat, tell me this. Do any of you actually think that he said anything of note in that opening statement? For 56 minutes, he waffled on when he could have just said, we're going to prove that this gentleman had sex with the deceased in her car. That car was then set on fire. She was then later found burning and later died from her injuries. That's what we're going to show. Boom, done. And the irony that they've all just sat through 56 minutes of that shit, and look at how long the defense opening statements are. 9 minutes. He waffled on for 56 minutes. I delivered it better. Good, I should hope so. Failed to humanise the victim and the families. Failed to make clear the heinousness of the crime. Yep.
Court will recognize Ms. Palmer for opening statement by the defense.
That southern drawl is pretty good.
May I proceed, Your Honor? I'm sorry, may I proceed, Your Honor?
You may, excuse me.
Thank you. The evidence will show that this indeed was a horrible crime, a terrible thing that happened to Jessica Chambers that day. Looks like it's right at about 3 years ago, December. And what happened was that Ms. Chambers actually came walking down Heron Road, where everything occurred that day. She was alert. She was able to speak. And what happened is that she encountered one of the first volunteer firefighters who was dispatched that day. Actually, what happened is that the firefighter that came, it was about 3, and from Cortland Volunteer Fire. And what happened is that they saw that the car was burning, but they did not see Jessica at that time. And so I would imagine a few minutes later, after they got there and tried to get the car contained as far as the burn and the fire, then that's when they saw Jessica walking up. After reaching her, taking care of her, getting her on the ground, laying her in an area where they could talk to her so they could try to do something to make things better for her. It's at that point that they started to speak with her. Now, the evidence will show that for at least the next 20 minutes or so, that there were at least 8 responders who spoke to her. And the evidence will show that Jessica Chambers repeatedly talked to 8 different people, if not more. They asked what her name was. Jessica, she said. They asked, who did this to you?
They what now? Woman, you're in the middle of a murder trial and you can't say ask properly? Oy, boy chamoy.
And what she did.
If I had been even remotely more prepared for this, I probably would have done up one of those damn bingo cards. Like, seriously. Actually, if anyone knows how to do that, let me know. Oy.
Was she told them who did this to her. Now, I know Mr. Champion talked to you about the fact that maybe her throat had soot or that she was not able to speak. But the evidence will show that many of the first responders completed reports. And what they put in their reports, you'll find that it's in quotes, where she said, Eric set me on fire. In quotations. She didn't say any other name. She didn't mention any other person. What she said was that Eric did this to me. Now, we had many responders out there. Cortland Fire. We had Pope Fire, because they're close in the area. And they got out there quickly, very fast. They were on the scene very quickly. They all talked to her and found out by asking her at a point when she could speak continuously. Now, can you imagine, as minutes passed, responder after responder talked to her? And we can't diminish this fact. Now, I know that Mr. Champion stated to you that everything else will show that it will change your mind about this. I submit to you that nothing that the state will present to you will change your mind. Because once you do hear from each one of these responders who are out there, once you hear exactly how they spoke to her, how she said she didn't know the person's last name. She knew Quentin. His name is Quentin Tellis. She did not say that day. Now, not a single piece of evidence that will be presented by the state. Again, I know Mr. Champion took quite a bit of time to spell out what they intend to show you or what the evidence will show. I submit to you
Quentin's the guy that's on trial.
each one of the things he said to you today is inconsistent.
I was going to laugh so hard if she said
Specifically,
inconsiderate.
statements from Quentin. He spoke to law enforcement, lots of law enforcement. You'll find that it's all different agencies, FBI, Panola County, MBI, ATF, things I couldn't necessarily remember what they stood for. He voluntarily spoke to all law enforcement whenever they wanted to talk to him. And not once did
Yeah,
he
that just makes him a
confess.
moron.
As a matter of fact, you'll see that he insisted that this was not something he would do, and he got upset about it. Cell phone records. A lot of times speaking about cell phone records. You'll find that the expert will tell you that it's a small area. We have Cortland, where the crime occurred, and then we have Batesville, another area. It's small. There's not even a cell phone site or a tower. And I don't venture to go into that right now because there will be a witness that they'll present. And he's going to tell you the data in the Cortland area where the crime occurred was just not as good as it possibly or was in Batesville. So the cellular phone records are just not as reliable as what you would think. Further, you cannot pinpoint a person. The evidence is going to show you cannot pinpoint a person, their location, as to where they are. I have my cell phone in my hand now. Can't necessarily say Darla Palmer is standing right here with her cell phone.
I was going to get all excited about the fact that she said data until I realised that previously she
We have
had
video
asked a
footage
question.
that they spoke about at the store right across the street from his house. And they have to admit to you that, or he did already, he said that what you can see is headlights on a car, vehicles coming back and forth. Now, most importantly, green dot card was purchased. Indeed, it was. Records that were subpoenaed or found by the state indicate that the very time frame that Quentin Tellis was supposed to have been committing this crime, he was actually in the store. I believe it's 7:53 or 7:58. These green dot records will show that he was entirely someplace else purchasing the green dot card at the time they say the crime happened. And so we'll show you
This is the
that.
first trial from like 2017.
Now again, none of this evidence will show beyond a reasonable doubt. And I know we did talk about that yesterday. Reasonable doubt. This case is full of reasonable doubt.
Not for you to decide.
And the point is that Ms. Chambers did not say Quentin set her on fire. She just did not say that. And we cannot ignore that. We can't look and say that later medically that prevented her from speaking when you have a multiple amount of individuals, first responders, saying this is what she said. Finally, the evidence will show that Eric is not on trial here today. He should be.
Oh,
And
right.
for this reason,
I was like, what?
we will ask that you find Quentin Tellis not guilty as a result. Thank you.
That's literally her.
December the 6th of 2014.
Yes, sir, I was.
Oh, yeah, that was the first thing that I was watching, and it sort of jumped ahead because I was watching part of it earlier. I mean, let's face it, neither party provided a decent opening there, in my opinion. She was slightly better because she didn't waste the jury's time for a significant period of time. But I still don't think that she It's jury trial. I still don't think she really got her points across. She's just saying, oh, well, he didn't do it, really. Which I suppose, to be fair, is what the defense needs to do in the first instance. Now, the big question of the day. Which colour do I use for the cockpit? Do I use the orange or do I go for the clear? I'm leaning towards orange.
Oh, I do need the jury, don't I?
Orange? Alright. Good, as long as it's not just me. I suppose at least this judge can have a bit of a laugh.
The jury's already seen me make a few mistakes. You people out there have not, so I just want you to know I am human.
What's going on up there? Stand-up comedy. He went to start the hearing. He went to start the evidence without the jury present. Like a television laugh track. A little bit, actually.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I trust that you followed my instructions and have not discussed the case among yourselves. Am I correct? Yes. All right. Mr. Champion, you may now call your first witness. Or Mr. Hale. All right, thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give involving this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Excuse me, Your Honor. That's what I can overrule.
All right, Will be involved. I'll put the prosecution in charge of their witnesses and defense will be in charge of theirs.
Is our expert, which we talked about at the bench a few minutes ago, everybody else is out.
All right, rule will, of course, be waived as to your any experts that you have. And, all right.
That someone was trying to sit in the.
Would you state your name for me, please?
Lisa Chambers.
And Ms. Chambers, I'm going to ask you to speak up, speak in the microphone, okay?
Okay.
How are you related to Jessica Lane Chambers?
That's my baby girl.
And growing up, did Jessica always live around Cortland?
Always.
And did she play some sports when she was growing up?
Yes, she did.
What was she involved in?
Softball. She played softball a lot, and she was a cheerleader at the high school and junior high.
And did she graduate from South Panola High School located here in Batesville?
Yes.
And how old was Jessica at the time of her death?
19.
Chambers, I'm going to show you a photograph. Can you describe the person depicted in this photograph?
It's my baby. Jessica Chambers.
Is this Jessica Lane Chambers?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I would ask this photograph be marked and received as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objection?
No, no.
I'll be so marked and admitted.
Chambers, I'm going to take you back to December the 6th of 2014. That is a day you'll always remember, is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, I'm going to ask you to speak up for me. That morning, Jessica was gone from the house, is that right?
Right.
And where did you think Jessica was?
I thought she was at work.
And during the early hours of the afternoon, did Jessica return home?
Yes, she did.
And I know you lived in Cortland. Who did Jessica live with at that time?
She lived with me.
What did she do when she returned home that day, that afternoon?
She came in and left to go get me a pack of cigarettes, and then she came back and piled up on the chair and went to sleep.
Took a nap.
Took a nap.
How was Jessica awakened from her nap?
She either received a phone call or a text on her phone, either one, music rang. So I didn't know which one it was. She jumped up, went to the bathroom, and then when she come out of the bathroom, she had the phone up to her ear like she was talking on it.
Did you know who she was talking to?
I had no idea who she was talking to.
And after she got off the phone, what did she do?
She come in and said she was fixing to go get her something to eat and clean out her car, and she'd be back in a little bit to clean her room.
Was that the last time you saw your daughter?
So she lied to her mama.
Yes, it was.
Approximately what time was it that she left your house?
I gotta try and be a little bit more respectful.
5:15. It was just getting dark,
And at 6:48, did you talk to Jessica?
Yes.
And was that by telephone?
Yes.
And normally when you talk to Jessica on the phone when she's gone, tell me about the atmosphere surrounding her phone calls.
Usually you can't hear her because it's so loud with music or just all kind of racket you could hear with the windows down because she was a cold person. She always had the windows down.
6:48 on December 6, 2014, what was the atmosphere of that phone call?
It was just kind of very quiet. You couldn't hear like the wind blowing. You couldn't hear any music. It was just her. Like you could just hear her voice.
Looking back on that, what did you take from that call?
That somebody was with her.
Is that the last time you spoke to your daughter?
Yes.
Later on that night, did Debbie Chambers come to your home?
Yes, she did.
And what were you advised at that time?
That my daughter had been set on fire.
Were you able to reach your daughter before she died at the Regional Medical Center?
Yes.
And were you able to say goodbye to Jessica Chambers?
Yes.
I asked you about Debbie Chambers. Who is Debbie Chambers?
That is Jessica's stepmother.
And her father is Ben Chambers, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And you used to be married to Ben Chambers, is that correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Lisa, do you know what type of car that Jessica drove?
Yes, she drove a black Kia.
And are you familiar with the keys that she had at that time to that black Kia?
Yes.
I'm going to show you an item of evidence. Can you identify this item for me?
Yes, those are Jessica's keys.
I believe they have a tag on here that has Ben's Auto and Diesel Repair.
Yes,
Is that her father's business?
that's her father. Yeah, it was, yes.
Your Honor, I would ask that this exhibit be marked for identification purposes only.
All right, any objections have been marked for identification? None, Your Honor. All right, it'd be so marked and is it for identification only? That'll be Exhibit 2 for identification. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, to the witness.
You may cross-examine.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Do I pronounce it Daughtery or Daughtry?
It's Chambers.
Chambers? Okay. Miss Chambers, would you agree with me that there was a lot of law enforcement investigating your daughter's case?
Are you kidding me right now? It's the mother of the deceased on the stand. She spelt her name out for the court record, and you get up there and call her by her married name. Or by I'm not sure if it was by a married name or a maiden name, but either way, you done fucked up. That's not okay by my standards. That means that not only was she not paying attention to what was actually going on in the court right in front of her, but, like, damn.
Yes.
And when it first happened, I know it's been nearly 3 years ago. When it first happened, no one had been arrested at that time.
No, no one was arrested at first.
Yes. And would you agree that it took a while for someone to get arrested for this charge?
Yes, I agree.
Yes. Did you keep constant communication with law enforcement?
Yes.
Yes. Was it pretty much every week since it happened?
No.
No? They kept in contact with you, though. You agree with that?
Yes.
It bothered you to some degree that there had not been any movement in the case. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And
Her daughter was dead in a horrific manner.
at some point, your communications with law enforcement increased.
Yes, ma'am.
It did? Okay.
Also, who... Like, that's the deceased there on a big-ass picture that's in the middle of the way, right? I'm not sure if that's just something they do in Mississippi, or if this is an exhibit that someone forgot to ask to take down, or, like, don't get me wrong, I think it's appropriate, because it means that they've got an image of the deceased there, but, like, no, don't attack the mother of deceased. Never gonna be a good thing.
Now, I know you mentioned just a bit when talking to Mr. Hale about the fact that there was a call that you spoke to Miss Jessica on that day.
Yes.
You said that you could tell someone was with her. You didn't hear a voice or anything, did you?
No, ma'am.
And then just one final question. With regard to using Jessica's phone, would you say that sometimes you did use it?
Jessica's phone?
Yes, back
No.
then. Okay. Never had occasion to use it to play with games or something on it?
Not Jessica's phone, no.
No. I tend to witness.
Redirect.
Not a lot that they've got to rehabilitate there, so I'd almost have just turned that over and released her.
No other questions, Your Honor.
What
There you go.
instructions would you give this witness?
Your Honor, I would ask you to be finally released to sit with the family in the audience.
Ms. Chambers, you've been finally released. You can leave the courthouse, or you may stay in the courtroom, your choice. All right, thank you. You can remove your exhibit, please.
Yes.
And you may call your next witness.
Oh my God! That was the prosecution's exhibit, and she left it up there the entire... Whoa! Oh! Oh my God! I'm gonna lose my shit over this. Like, I'm sorry, I can't even sit there and think that she's a public defender or something, because a public defender's gonna know better. That was just poor.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is all in this case?
Exactly. Just leave it there the whole time, Your Honor. Yeah, look, Divins, I get that, but in some ways it's worse because they've got the picture of this beautiful girl sitting right in front of them and they're trying to find the reason why she was burnt to a crisp and died from her injuries. I mean, yeah, it might be slightly more, might be slightly better. It's still not great, though. First thing I say, can you please remove this grotesque display? Oh, boosh. I wouldn't say, I wouldn't be dissing the deceased at the time, but I'd be certainly saying, can we please have the prosecution's exhibit removed?
All right. Speaking of that microphone for me, Keisha, what is your name?
Lakeisha Meyer,
Keisha.
And Keisha, where do you live?
84C Azalea Road, Cortland, Mississippi.
And how long have you lived there?
I've lived there for about 6 years now.
Okay. And prior to that, being in Cortland, where did you live? You don't have to give me an
Picture the
address,
turd
but
there the entire
city?
time.
I stayed in Tunica and Cortland, pretty much.
Okay. In excess of, or right around 3 years ago, did you have an occasion to meet a girl named Jessica Chambers?
Yes.
Tell the jury how you met her.
Actually, I met her walking down the road one day as she was walking, and I met her that way, right around the road from where I stayed.
And do you know where
Okay.
Jessica lived at the time of her death?
Yes.
Was that fairly close to where you live?
Yes.
Did y'all become friends?
Yes.
We'll show you what's been marked as exhibit number 1. Who is that?
Jessica Chambers.
Was she your friend?
Yes.
This is literally a battle of who can hash this up the worst.
What would, at some point, when you and Jessica were friends, did you attend a trade school?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Oh,
where
near
was that
Trenton.
located?
Right there off of Highway 51, a Job Corps, Finch
That-
Henry Job Corps.
That's here in Batesville.
Yes, right here in BC.
And
Why
and
did I
what
just
is
type
Job
Trenton
Corps?
into my search bar?
Job Corps is a trade school, and yes, a trade school,
And what trade were you learning?
welding.
And while you were at Job
Ooh, whoops.
Corps, did you have to live there?
Yes, I stayed on campus.
Opening that one.
And did you?
Yes,
And did you have time on weekends or during the week when you could hang out with your friends?
yes,
And did you have occasion to hang
Okay.
out?
So Trenton's been kind enough to put up a card for us. I will put the link in chat. I previewed it. I'm happy with it. Where are we? That's funny. Okay, if you want to join in for bingo, we have the courtroom laughs, we have text, naughty words, about 15 minutes too long, leading, what's in the shed, a TV show reference, a food reference, a lying liar who lies, axed, defendant close-up, law enforcement knows, we didn't look into that, the last time you used the microphone, cell phone, big city, expert witness, tech doesn't work right, that does not include my tech, doxing for all, speak up, reasonable doubt, sustained, and overruled. So, post the link again. What, did it not work? Oh, strange. Hang on. Oh, I think it's missing a backslash out of it for some reason. There we go. What do we care about our schooling? I don't think we really do. So, all right. So what we'll say is we've already had the courtroom laugh. It's about 15 minutes too long, at least, for the opening statements. We'll say what's in the shed as well. Axed. And I think we'll leave it at that for the moment because we haven't had any. Oh no, and we'll have reasonable doubt as well. All right.
With Jessica.
No, during the whole time I was there, I didn't really hang out with Jessica because Jessica, she was getting her life together. She just got a job at Goodies, and, we kind of lost connection when I was there going to school at the time. I didn't really see Jessica till towards the end of me being at school, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, I want to take you back to December the 5th on Friday night.
Yes.
Before Jessica died. Were y'all together that night?
Yes.
Okay. And on December the 6th, the day that Jessica was burned, did you have occasion to be with Jessica?
Yes.
And tell me how, or tell the jury how you and Jessica came to get together.
Jessica came and picked me up from school on a Wednesday. It was the 3rd, I want to say, the 3rd of December.
I'm going on the day that she died.
Okay, well, Saturday I was at my boyfriend's house, and she came and picked me up earlier that morning around 10. She came and picked me up, and she had Quentin Tellis with her.
Do you see Quentin Tellis in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Would you point him out, please, and tell me what he's wearing?
He's right there, and he's wearing a striped shirt and glasses.
By the record reflects she's identified the defendant.
Record will so indicate.
So when she came to get you around 10 o'clock, was Quentin in the car with her?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the purpose of her coming to pick you up?
Really, you were just doing the normal that we usually do. Just took a ride around and just hanged out a little bit, and that's not much.
And did y'all do that? Did the three of y'all ride around?
Yes.
Did you ride Quentin?
Of where Jessica was burned, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you were riding around that day, did y'all drive by there going out and then turn around and drive back coming in town?
Yes.
No, we haven't had any leading yet.
And how long?
Well, apparently Ghosts almost already got a bingo, so you know what? Let's just start afresh.
So, I mean, it wasn't long. We weren't together long. It probably, the longest we were together, probably an hour or two. Probably not even that.
And at some point, did she take you home first, or did she take Quentin home first?
She took Quentin home first.
Okay. And did she let him out of the vehicle?
Yes.
Do you remember where he let out of the vehicle?
I don't really just remember, but I know it was on 51.
Okay. Was it near the store?
Yes.
And then after y'all left Quentin, or let Quentin out of the car, what did you and Jessica do?
She came and dropped me off. She told me she was going to come back and she'll hit me up later on. But my phone happened to go off at noon, so I didn't talk to Jessica the rest of that day.
Okay. And why did your phone go off?
I ran out of minutes.
Were you aware that had happened at the time, or was it later on when you found out?
It was later on that I found out.
After leaving Jessica roughly 11 to 12 o'clock, did you have occasion to ever talk to her again?
No. I didn't speak to her, didn't hear anything from her for the rest of the day. I tried to reach out to her and never got any response. Did
y'all actually have plans to go out and do something that night that you learned about later?
Yes.
Okay. And tell the jury, what were you found about this after the fact, is that correct?
Yes.
And what significance was
last time
Saturday
is checked
life?
off?
It was my birthday, actually.
And that was December the 6th, is that correct?
No, my birthday was the 7th, but that weekend we were, going to celebrate.
Okay. And what did you find out after Jessica had died that y'all were supposed to do on that Saturday night?
We were supposed to go to Memphis. I'm not sure where we were supposed to go, but I know they were going to take me to Memphis to go celebrate.
What was the reason for you going to Memphis?
To celebrate my birthday.
Okay.
Literally just said it.
I want to ask you how old you were.
I would be 21, turning 20. I was 20, actually, just turned 20.
Did you ever see, or how did you learn about what had happened to Jessica?
Actually, I was at my boyfriend's house, and it was pretty late. It was about 2 o'clock, 2:30, when I really just heard about the news, just really going on. My boyfriend's cousin came in the house and was like, did you guys hear about the girl around the road? The girl that I used to hang out with all the time? She didn't know her name. And she said, she was burnt and she's in ICU right now. And that's as far as much as I heard about it until the next morning. And then I found out she was gone.
Did you know that night when at 2:30 in the morning, did you know who they were talking about?
No, at first I didn't. I didn't at first, but then when she said, the girl that I hang out with all the time, it kind of just, Jessica, but it was hard to believe because I just seen her. So.
And the person that was in the car with you and Jessica from 10 to, I believe you said an hour or so, is Quentin Tellis.
Yes.
Okay. On Wednesday, did you have occasion to ride with Jessica and Quentin?
No.
Or a couple of days prior,
Yeah.
not necessarily Wednesday. And at some point, did you drop Quentin off, or you and Jessica drop Quentin off at a location in Cortland called the Sandbox?
Yes.
All right, tell me a little bit about that.
We met him at the store. We picked him up, and he wasn't. Me and Jessica, we did our occasional thing, smoking, and he wasn't drinking or smoking or anything, and it wasn't really a long time period that we were together. I guess he just needed a ride over there, and we went and dropped him off, and they had a hug as he was getting out the car, and Jessica made it seem like she was scared or something. She made it seem like she was paranoid or anything, something was bothering her, and it just seemed like he didn't want to let her go. So that's as far as.
All right, let's back up just a minute. So y'all pick him up at M&M's at the store by his house, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you drove him to the Sandbox?
Yes.
Okay. Did Jessica get out of the car at the Sandbox?
Yes.
And did Quentin get out of the car at the Sandbox?
Yes.
Did you get out of the car at the Sandbox?
No.
Okay. And as Jessica got out, did Quentin approach her?
They were conversating as they were already talking before they got out the car, but they got out the car and they were still having their conversation. And they just he wanted a hug, they got a hug, exchanged a hug, and then he left and walked off from there.
But something about the hug.
It just wasn't sitting right, because Jessica she acted like it was, something dangerous. Like she acted like she was paranoid or scared of something. I don't know what it could have been, but she made it seem like it was aggressive towards her. But
Did she appear to be returning I guess for lack of a better word, returning the love?
She made it short, made it a friendly hug, but she made it seem more like she was scared to do it. So she made it a quick hug and then got back in the car and he left.
And this occurred at the Sandbox?
Yes.
Okay. Tend to the witness, Your Honor.
Cross.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
See how she makes a hash of this.
Yes.
Okay. Would you have considered, or you did consider, Jessica to be your best friend?
Yes.
Did. And back at the time you met Quentin, you met him in a store, is that? And actually, Jessica introduced you to him.
Yes.
She introduced him as Quentin.
Yeah, that's Quentin.
And never called him Eric in your presence.
Mm-mm.
And basically, she knew who he was.
Yeah. She made me seem like she knew who he was. I don't know him, so.
Right, okay. But she made it seem to you like she knew
Yeah.
who he was.
Yeah.
Yes. And on the day that, let's go to that Saturday, which would have been the day that she was killed. You said that the three of you rode around and hung out a bit.
Raises.
Okay. And I believe you also mentioned that what you guys normally kind of did was ride around and maybe smoke weed or marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Say yes or no.
Yes.
You also testified to
Say
the
yes
fact
or no.
that on
Yes.
that day, Quentin wasn't smoking.
Yes.
I'm building a shield
Prior
logger
to this
just
day,
so that I
there
can
were times
have something to do with my hands while I
you and
focus.
Jessica would ride around as well
Yes.
and smoke.
Yes.
Now, you have knowledge that Jessica actually was involved with selling drugs to some degree, marijuana.
Yes.
Ooh.
That was yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And that would have been pretty often, let's say in the last 6 months
Fair.
prior to that.
Productive with my hands.
And closer we got to the December timeframe, would you say that she was basically serving people every other day?
Yes.
Non-motorized.
I know you talked
I prefer to be
also
able to
about,
stage them myself.
you spoke about when you rode around, it may have been in the area where she was killed.
Yes.
Did you even know where that area was
No.
prior to that date?
No.
And what happened was that you weren't really sure where that area was.
Yes.
Okay. Or if you even went in that area that day.
Yes.
And let me make sure I'm understanding. So you weren't sure if you guys drove in that area or not on that day.
Yes.
But we do know for a fact that the three of you were together that morning.
Yes.
But that Jessica dropped Quentin off.
Yes.
That would have been the last time you saw him, correct?
Yes.
Course indulgence. Just a moment.
While they're talking, chat, because I can see you talking about Dr. Pepper. Is the strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper any good? Because when I was growing up, I could never really deal with regular Dr. Pepper, but I grabbed a strawberries and cream just to try it, and it's in the fridge. Is it worth it or not?
No, you spoke about a few days before that Saturday.
Yes.
On the day that the three of you were together, Quentin was already in the car.
Yes.
And so on that day, there was no animosity or anything of that nature between Jessica and Quentin.
No.
You did not witness that.
No.
I tend to witness you.
Redirect.
I believe when you were interviewed earlier, you were interviewed numerous times in this case, is that correct?
Yes.
And at one time, did you indicate that Jessica was getting some of the weed from Quentin?
Never.
Okay, who was she getting her weed from, do you know?
No, I'm not sure where she got it from.
Okay. But you also would smoke weed with her, is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe on the morning that y'all rode around, was Quentin smoking weed on that Saturday morning that Jessica died?
No.
Okay. Just you and Jessica?
Yes.
Okay. And did she ever, you were asked about whether she ever called him Eric, did you ever, let me just move on from that. Did you ever hear her call him any other names?
No.
Okay. And you were introduced to him as?
Quentin.
Quentin. Did Jessica talk to you any more after she dropped you back off that morning at your boyfriend's house?
No, she didn't.
And did you attempt to call her prior to your minutes expiring?
Yes.
This is beyond the scope of cross.
I'm through. I'm through. Nothing further. She may be,
What instructions would you give this?
she may be finally excused.
Ma'am, you may be fine excused as you can leave the courtroom or you may return to the courtroom, your choice.
Okay.
You may call your next witness.
Glenn Williams.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Someone to let a dog in the courtroom? I swear to God, that's the sound that Angel makes. Aww.
All right, Miss Hill. Good afternoon. Would you state your name for me?
Yes. Glenn Williams,
And Mr. Williams, what city do you currently reside in?
Marks, Mississippi.
You know why you're here, correct?
Correct.
On December 6, 2014, you recall what day of the week that was?
Saturday.
And back in those days, what was your Saturday routine?
I had a small trucking company at the time, so Saturday was payday for the couple of guys that were working for me.
Mr. Williams, I'm going to ask you to kind of step up and speak to that mic because everybody's got to be able to hear you, okay?
Okay.
And Saturday being payday, where did you go to pay your drivers?
Lambert, Mississippi.
And at the time, where were you living?
Pontotoc.
And is Cortland between Lambert and Pontotoc?
Yes.
Now, did you have somebody with you on that particular day?
Yes.
Who was that?
Troy Rudd.
And when you left Lambert, where was your destination with Troy Rudd? Where were you headed?
Cortland.
What part of Cortland?
Heron Sub.
And as you were driving, when you went to Heron Sub, did you take the main roads?
No, we came around Benson Road.
All right, why'd you take the back roads?
Well, first of all, it's easier away from Lambert to Cortland. Second, we was drinking.
Y'all were drinking beer, right?
Yes.
Y'all going back roads to Cortland?
Correct.
And as you entered, you mentioned Benson Road. Benson Road, you turn on the Heron Road off of Benson, headed to Cortland, right?
Correct.
And as you were headed down Heron Road, tell the jury what you saw.
I would say maybe 2 hills before we encountered the car on fire. It was, fire was up in the trees. I mean, like way up there. You could see it over the top of the hill.
You saw fire?
Yeah.
As you approached the fire, could you tell what was on fire?
It was a car.
Did you see any people around? No. As you drove by the fire, who's driving, you or Troy?
Me.
What were you in?
My 2014 pickup.
Did you ever stop?
Yes.
Did you ever get out of the car?
We got out on the side of the road, but we didn't go up there because...
Oh, no, I'm going to back up. When you passed the burning car, did you get out of the car next to the burning car?
No.
Did you stop or drive by the car?
We stopped it was kind of in the middle of the road because the fire was on the passenger side of the truck. So you had to get over to get out. So both people could get out because the fire was in the middle of the road.
Okay. Where did you ultimately stop and get out of the car?
I would say somewhere probably past the car a little bit, maybe, but not down the hill.
And you never saw anybody?
No.
What was your initial thoughts when you saw the car burning?
I said somebody started the car on fire for insurance money.
Why would you think insurance at that time of year?
Christmas time.
Now, you were headed to meet somebody, is that correct?
Correct.
And where was that person waiting on you?
Just saying, that would have been a perfect time for an objection.
Heron Subdivision's right past this.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to reading.
Where is Heron Sub in regards to this crime scene?
Down the hill, past the second turn on the right.
And when you got to Heron Sub, where did you go?
I had a camper in the back.
Okay. And you had somebody waiting on you at the camper?
Yeah.
Now, after you and Troy noticed the fire, did you report it?
Yes.
Who called it in?
He called it in. Well, he called, I think it was Cortland Fire Department, if I'm not mistaken.
And while you were in Heron Sub, did you see any firemen or ambulances?
Yes, I didn't see him, I heard him go by.
And
Put along, counselors.
do me a favor and describe the fire when you passed by the car.
It was a fire, I mean, it was burning. I mean, the car was fully in, what you call consumed, fully occupied with fire. It was burning. The trees there probably 30, 35 feet tall, and it was way up in top of it all.
Was inside the car burning?
Yes.
All right, 10 of the witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good evening.
You were with LaTroy Rudd on December 6th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the two of you were coming from where?
From Lambert, Mississippi.
Lambert. Where is Lambert, Mississippi?
Well, easy way I could describe it is where we at base. We go down 6 to the 4-way stop sign, turn left, and go 2 miles.
So it would be north of Batesville?
It would be
south of Batesville?
South. It would be south, but southwest from up here.
Now, before I proceed, did you know Jessica Chambers?
No.
What about Quentin Tellis?
No.
So you never, you didn't know either one of those?
No.
Okay. Now, how did you actually come to be in this area?
I'm from Lambert, Vance, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Now, when you were answering questions by the prosecutor, you were talking about your normal routine?
Yes.
Tell me about that routine.
Like I said, at the time I had I had about 4 trucks. So I had people driving for me, and depends on whether they got a load for Saturday mornings or not. They would get paid on either Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
And so them being like me, I know they wanted their money Saturday.
Okay.
So I went and took it to them.
So did that routine bring you by the place where you saw the fire on a regular basis?
You mean like occasionally?
Yes.
Yeah, I still see some of the stuff that's there on the side of the road.
So you're in that area frequently, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
my trucks are parked in Cortland now.
Now, when you were answering questions from the prosecution, you indicated that you saw fire way up in the trees.
Correct.
And you indicated that this was
yeah, it
prior
is,
to
Jill.
you actually seeing the vehicle burning.
Correct.
Okay. Did you
Probably
call
another
anyone at
15
that
minutes,
point?
people.
No, because
Oops,
you
wrong
couldn't
button.
tell what was on fire. You had to come up a hill, down a hill, and then back up the next hill to get to the car.
Okay. So then you came up a hill, down a hill, and you came up near where the car was.
Yes.
And at that point, you were on the road directly next to the car. Is that correct?
No, you would be in the, okay, at the time you're going probably, you're going east, so you would, instead of being in the right lane, you would be in the left-hand lane, like you passing the car.
Now describe for the jury, this is a 2-lane road we're talking about, right?
Correct.
It's not 4 lanes.
No.
Okay. So when you made it to the area where the car was burning, what did you do?
We looked at first, and I looked back. I remember looking back to see, did we meet anybody like going down the road? And so we didn't, there was nobody there to see.
Okay.
So we got pulled up beyond the, probably the front tire.
Pretty much. I think he's there to establish that he was first on scene and he's the one that called it in, so.
The trees were popping.
Foundation for the police call later on.
If you're familiar with that area, it's on a hill. And I didn't want the tree that was burning to fall on my pickup. So we pulled past, started down the hill.
Okay.
And when we got out of the car, that's when Troy called the Cortland Fire Department.
And that would be Mr. Rudd, correct?
Yes.
He called Cortland Fire Department. Now, you indicated that you were looking back.
Yes.
Why were you doing that?
Because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anyone that probably needed help. You know, because at that time you didn't see anybody, you couldn't even see nothing in the car, like nothing. You know, it was fully like burning, like the seat was on fire.
So when you were in the area, you made a conscious effort to look around to see if anyone was there.
Yes.
And you didn't see anyone.
No.
And you didn't see Jessica Chambers, is that
No.
correct? Okay. So you pulled down past where the car fire was burning, and at some point you and Mr. Rudd stopped your vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. Did both of you get out?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was the fire at that point, was it?
It was still popping.
Tell me about the fire in relation to the vehicle.
Okay.
Was the entire car burning?
Yes.
So it was fully
engulfed, and it was, the whole while we were there, it was burning up in the trees.
Okay.
The whole time.
I'm sorry. And was it coming out, was the fire coming out on the street?
No, the heat was.
The heat was.
So
you could feel the heat?
Yes, that's why I pulled down beyond the car, because at that time, we was, like I said, we was riding, drinking, so we had the windows down. And so when you pull by the car, you can feel the heat coming through the windows. And so you had to pull by the actual car burning to be able to get out of the truck.
Certainly. How long did you and Mr. Rudd stay at that scene?
I can't say I honestly remember, but I would say maybe about 2 minutes.
About 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Tell me, while you and Mr. Rudd were at the scene, did you encounter any first responders?
No, not that I remember.
When I say first responders, I mean firemen, ambulance personnel.
No, because I heard when I got to.
I heard the sirens and I took off.
Where Troy lives.
I was running and running and running.
Trucks go by. I heard I can't say.
I'm
it
tired.
was
I have no filter right now.
Ambulance or police or Cortland Fire Department. I'm just assuming it was them since the first one that was called. But I just heard the sirens go by. I didn't.
Was it you or Mr. Rudd who called to report the fire?
It was not. It was not me.
So Mr. Rudd called to report the fire?
Yes. Because I didn't even know the number to.
Do you know who he called?
911?
I'm assuming it was, I don't know for a fact that it was Cortland Fire Department, I don't know. you know, I don't even know what was said. Did he say he called Cortland Fire Department? So I can't say for 100% certainty that he called Cortland Fire Department.
So after about 2 minutes, you and Mr. Rudd got back into your vehicle and left the scene?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did you give a statement to law enforcement?
I did.
You did. Do you recall who you spoke with?
I recall several conversations. I
But also, Jill, that's one thing that annoys me.
First
Dumbass Americans coming over here as tourists can't remember 000, so we had to make 911 redirect
And
to
how long
000.
did this conversation
But do you think they
take
do the same
place
thing in
after
America?
the fire that you witnessed?
Next day, maybe day after.
Okay. So did someone contact you, or did you just
Yes.
go into the?
I think someone contacted me. Yeah.
And when that person contacted you, you went to the sheriff's office to give a statement?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that there were multiple statements.
Yes. Multiple contacts because
Okay.
They kept wanting to call tonight and ask, did we see anybody walking down the road? I was like, no, I didn't. I made a conscious effort to look. I didn't see anybody. I did not see anyone.
Okay.
I can't see what's not there.
And Mr. Williams, do you recall who at the sheriff's department you actually spoke to the day after this incident?
No.
Okay.
Not real offhand.
Do you recall anyone that you spoke with from law enforcement, period, at any point?
I recall speaking to, what is the other police that were here? Was the FBI?
You spoke with the FBI?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, whatever. I guess that was assuming, but yeah.
Mr. Williams, did you ever submit to any type of DNA testing?
No.
And now, finally, Mr. Williams, you indicated that when you first saw the fire, you thought that it was someone maybe burning the car for insurance.
Yes.
Have you known that to happen before?
I have.
Okay. And
Sure, everybody.
that's court indulgence.
Yes, sir.
Let's turn the windshield.
Redirect.
Mr. Peterson asked you how long you stayed at the scene, or where you parked down from the scene. You had somebody waiting on you at the camper, right?
Yes.
Lady friend? Correct. And after the authorities were called, what was written?
Sorry, that was just for my own
Beer
enjoyment.
But I know beer. I mean, after I got back to the camper.
Did you have somebody else on your mind up at Harrod Sub?
I did.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
What instructions did you give this witness?
It has to be finally released.
All right, so you may
I don't
be
know if he's
finally
higher or
released
if he's
and you
just
can stay in
simple.
the courtroom, your choice.
Okay.
But he's off the stand, which is the main thing. Which I think is a pretty natural place for me to stop. Yes, Jared, that was from the IT crowd. Actually, that brought us to almost exactly 2 hours. Oh, well, I mean, it's like 2 hours, 23 minutes. But, all right, guys. So this will be the retro trial I'm going to do probably once a week moving forward. You got woken up. Sorry about that. Oh, look. It's altogether a possibility that he's toasted. I'm just giving the guy the benefit of the doubt because he was on the stand. But anyway, I'll be back tomorrow. I was supposed to have Lady Overlaw'd on with me today, so I'll see whether or not we can do that tomorrow. If not, I'm sure we'll be able to find something to fill the time. But as always, people, remember, you're not a piece of shit. You have value and do contribute to society, and thank you so much for everyone to be here. And, you know, put it out there that I'm doing stuff in the meantime. I will continue to try and cajole Jeff into signing up for Rumble. And yeah. But as always, people, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I will catch you all on the flip side. Cheers, peeps.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Slow it. There we go. Hey, Nia.